Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Leatherwood Hi-Lux podcast. We've got Corbett Leatherwood here, Chris Wu, and our guest is Howard Funk of HR Funk on YouTube. And we're very excited to share with you about Howard and talk about the ART M1000 and Howard's experience. So, Chris, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Howard, introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Chris. I'm the marketing director here at Hi-Lux Optics. You may notice me from at Camp Perry. I've been out there the last couple of years, and I'm very, very excited to have Howard here on our podcast.
All right, Howard, tell us a little bit about you.
Howard Funk. I'm currently the chief of police for a small village here in Ohio. I've been a law enforcement officer for the last 30 years. Prior to that, I was in the Marine Corps. I am a lifelong firearms enthusiast, and I have spent a good deal of time with both rifles and handguns as a hunter, as a competitive shooter. I'm a former sniper for my police department's tactical team, and I'm also a competitive shooter. Primarily, I shoot long-range, high-power rifle competitions, so that's a little bit of where I'm coming from.
Again, thank you very much for making the time to visit with us. We really do appreciate it. We're excited about this. So let me tell you a little bit more about us. So similar to the Leatherwood brothers, where my dad and my uncle, at the ranch ran it as a small family-owned business. Similarly, history's kind of repeating itself. And so Chris, who's on the phone, John is Chris's dad. John's brother runs the factory. So we're a small family-owned business, but it's great because we've got this family environment, and we're small and we own the quality. That's why we're able, when customers come to us and bring to us recommendations, we're able to adapt to try to make changes. I mean, it's, Chris and I are out, we go to his dad, we take a look at some engineering design, some reticle upgrades, whatever, and then we go back. For example, your input about the reticle, how you like the simple reticle. We're looking at creating a simple glass edge reticle for folks like you and me, because I'm also a fan of that simple, it's the practical accuracy versus the precision accuracy, right? So, but we can meet both.
Right.
And anyway, so that's kind of where we are. We're just a small company. We've got some very unique products that, we do the replica stuff and you've probably seen like the Unerdal style. We've got the old one. If you saw 310 to Yuma, the remake of 310 to Yuma, that long scope that the Native American was using, that's our product. We got to have the rifle at the SHOT Show a few times. It was great. So that's where we are. If I had to provide our mission statement, it comes from my dad, and he said, I want a scope that the average Joe, and because he was Army in his mind and his heart, his blood bled green, right? That was just who he was. He said, I want it so the average Joe can afford it. So we have a feature-rich product that's quality, that, it won't break. We stand behind our quality, that the average Joe can afford. And so John, Chris's dad, is committed to that principle. And so that's who we are.
And that's pretty much exactly the way I've perceived you and your company. And I've told you the story before, but when I purchased, and I have it here, when I purchased this rifle at Camp Perry last year from Commercial Row, it had M600 art scope on it. And when I got it home, I was really excited. I had been aware of the art scopes for a long time. First started reading about them when I became a sniper. I was familiar with the story of them being developed during the Vietnam War, but I had never had a chance to work with one, and I'd always been curious about them. So I was really looking forward to getting that rifle out with the art scope on it to try it. And when I got to the range, I ran into a problem. And the problem was I didn't have sufficient windage adjustment to be able to bring my point of aim to my point of impact. Now, the elevation was fine, but I could not get that point of impact, or the windage rather, to adjust properly. So I contacted your company, and I made it, clear from the beginning that I was not the original purchaser of that scope. I didn't want to mislead anyone. And I was fully expecting to hear either that's an older product and we just don't support it anymore, or we can fix it and here's how much it's going to cost you to get it fixed. And I think I talked to Chris. I know I talked to him at least somewhere during this whole exchange. And he said, you know what, go ahead and send it back. We'll take a look at it. We'll see what we can do, which kind of surprised me. Again, I wasn't expecting that. So I sent it back. And as it turned out, that couldn't be, the older scope couldn't be corrected for my rifle. But I got what I thought was a very generous allowance on purchasing a new scope. I had the option at that time of either getting one of the new M1000 Pros or one of the older, I should say slightly older, M1000s. And I went with that older scope, which is now on the rifle. And that one came in, I installed it, I went out to the range and I set it up. Basically, I'd watched some of the videos that you had made before, and I read the directions, I set it up, and I started to shoot it, and I thought, wow, this is a great scope. And the accuracy that I was seeing with that system, with my rifle and the ammunition that I was using, was really pretty impressive. I was getting some half-minute of angle groups. Not every single one, but then again, I don't fire a half-minute of angle group every single time I fire any rifle system. I wish I did. But, I was seeing some really good accuracy. I was really encouraged with it, to the point that when I went to bang steel down in Virginia last fall, I took that system along with me, along with my 700P, that is my old work rifle. And I was able to use the M1A with the art scope, and as you said a little while ago, I was engaging targets all the way out to 840 yards, and it was easy when I located the target and I was given the range. I didn't have to try to range it, but I was given the range, and I was able to dial the scope to the proper setting for that range and press the trigger. And like I said, it was fairly easy. I did disconnect them, so I was using the scope on the full magnification, but again, just dialing it in for the range and then taking the shot was, for me, a very simple process. I wasn't, clicking my way through an elevation turret or anything else. I was just basically spinning that dial to where it lined up with the right marking on the scope and pressing the trigger. The thing that I've not done a lot of yet that I still want to work with and try to master is the whole frame, aim, and shoot part of it. And that's going to be moving forward what I'm working with. And when I start to work with the M1000 Pro, I'm really looking forward to working with it as well. My plan for that particular scope, once we get past this whole COVID-19 thing and I can get the rifle that I'm trying to get and get it installed, is to use it for several videos. I want to feature just an installation and setup for one, and then start to go out and work with the Zero and working with the various features of that particular scope to try to give people sort of an understanding from the ground up, from the day you take it out of the box and bolt it onto the rifle, until you feel like you're fully competent with it, sort of how that progression goes. And I'm really very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, so are we. And because of your background, you're not having to learn how to shoot, but you've never, other than the few times you've taken it to the range, you haven't done the full-blown setup. And so we're looking forward to having your view and your perspective on, on that entire process. So, and things that we can produce. So for example, as you're going through, if you say, oh, it would be nice if you guys had this, a video over that, because we want to make it as easy as possible. So one of the things we want to know, and we want our listeners to know, tell us about you, your background, what you're doing today with your HR Funk YouTube channel. We think it's great. You're very dynamic. We love how you cover a wide range of products, from pistols to your firearms, to just everything that you do. It's quite exciting. So we'd like to hear about you.
Well, I guess I'll start the story early on. I'm a lifelong firearms aficionado. I've enjoyed hunting and shooting my whole life. When I went into the Marine Corps at the age of 19, that was my first real exposure to formal marksmanship training and long-range shooting. We used to shoot our M16s out to 500 yards in the Marine Corps. I was a military policeman in the Marine Corps, so I got additional firearms training that had to do with handguns and shotguns, etc. And then I spent the next 4 years as a military policeman in the Marine Corps. A good portion of that time was at Cherry Point, North Carolina. I also spent some time in Iwakuni, Japan, some time in Yecheon, Korea. So I moved around a little bit, came back home, ended up getting out of the Marine Corps, I thought, in 1989. And I became a police officer here in Ohio, starting out with a small village in north central Ohio. And then in 1991, I got recalled into the Marine Corps for the Gulf War, so I was right back in. But always, again, continued that interest in firearms, interest in shooting. I changed police departments in 1991, and I went to a small city here in Ohio. And with that city, I became a firearms instructor. I also became a sniper for our SWAT team, and ended up serving in that role for quite a number of years. And it was an assignment that I dearly loved, and it's something I miss to this day. During that time, I also got involved in high power rifle competition, started shooting up at Camp Perry. Around 2012 or so, started watching YouTube. I'd been watching it prior to that, but started watching a lot of YouTube. And there were things that I would see on there that I thought, I can probably do that a little bit better than it's being done, or maybe I can make this a little bit more entertaining or whatever. So I started to make videos. And I have to tell you, when I look back at some of those original videos, they're almost painful. I sit there and I think, oh, I should not have said that way, or I should have had lights different places or whatever. But it was really something that was an extension of my being an instructor. And I have no background in media, broadcasting, acting, which is painfully obvious to anyone who watches too many of my videos. But I have tried to learn over the years and improve them. And I try to bring my enjoyment of shooting and my enjoyment of firearms to the videos. I try not to take myself too seriously when I produce a video. If I mess something up, I'll laugh at myself because I know everybody else around the world is going to. So I may as well get into the fun too. But yeah, and my channel is pretty diverse as far as all the different types of shooting and firearms products that I end up featuring. One video I might be doing something on high power rifle shooting. The next video I might be doing law enforcement handgun qualification course. Next time I might have something completely different. I might have a black powder firearm out there. So it's a little bit of everything that I do, and I've enjoyed it. The biggest thing that I've gotten from having that YouTube channel is the community that I am afforded with firearms enthusiasts around the world, and meeting folks like yourselves, having contact with people. I'll have comments coming in from people in Australia or people in the UK or wherever. And it's really interesting how like-minded so many of us are when the topic is firearms. It's just an amazing thing to be able to have a discussion with somebody thousands of miles away, and it's almost like we're talking right now or talking to someone on the range. That's the part of it I really enjoy, and that's, again, the biggest thing that I've gotten from the whole YouTube experience.
That's outstanding, and I think we can all relate to the bloopers reels. We've really enjoyed watching your channel. Of course, I missed out on the guesses for the to guess what was in the box, but really like how you incorporate those type of activities to draw in and entertain your users. And for our listeners, HR Funk, look him up on YouTube. A lot of great content from a very experienced firearm aficionado and former Marine. I guess once a Marine, always a Marine. So I can't really say former Marine, but but you know what I mean. But serving your nation, right, through your Marines, through the LEO, you know, taking care of your community. So this is great, great stuff, and we really appreciate you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Chris, because Chris has a few questions for you with respect to some of the Camp Perry activities and other aspects of what we do.
Hey, Howard. So actually, I just wanted to give you a little shout out. I watched one of your videos on the practical accuracy, and you're saying that the most important shot's the next shot. And actually, I was thinking about that a lot of the times when I was at the range, and like I might not have like a perfect run, but I was like, all right, so it's cool. It's just the next shot. I got to get it right, get my mind right, and that really helped me out. Just that principle.
Good. I'm glad.
And so I noticed that you do a lot of high power shooting, and like Corbett kind of touched on, we are one of the smaller, more agile companies. We came out with a new high power scope for a service rifle, or XTC. We kind of designed it around the optics rules, increased the objective to 34 millimeters, and also we added like a adjustable parallax on the front objective. Are you do you shoot a lot of high power competitions, or you go to Camp Perry every year?
I do, yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, we've been trying to go down there. And are you planning to do any vintage sniper competitions?
I've done vintage sniper competition almost since it began. In fact,
Wow.
my 03A4 replica is a James River Armory, and it has one of your scopes on top of it, which
Okay.
has also been a very good optic.
The M73?
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, we were actually coming out with a new version of our 8-power scope, and I was wondering if you wanted to be one of our product testers for that. We've recreated the mount, so we've kind of listened to all the feedback, collated all that data from the CMP forums, from all the online guys, and basically they're saying how the mounts left something to be desired, and we took all that feedback, and we've been working on this new product. So I'd be really curious to see your thoughts, and if you could maybe help us put it through the paces and do some testing on that.
I would love to. The only thing is, I have to be honest, I don't have a rifle that I could put it on. That's not one that I could put right on my 03A4 because it mounts up differently. It takes one of the actual, what I'll call a straight 03 Springfield, and I don't have one of those. So I would love to try it out. I just don't have anything to put it on.
No, I understand. Okay. Well, yeah, we're still in production for that, so I think maybe sometime, actually maybe around Camp Perry, and I'll bring it by, and we can meet up at Camp Perry, and I'll show you the scope and everything.
Okay. I hope we end up having the national matches this year.
Hopefully, yeah. I'm thinking from the recent news, it seems like the curve is starting to flatten in terms of new cases and the amount of people recovering. So hopefully, we'll be able to go out soon. But that's excellent, and I'm really looking forward to seeing your Art Scope and M1000 Pro videos. We've done some videos just taking it off the ground and putting it on the rifle, kind of showing people how easy it is to set up. I'm really curious to see what a marksman of your caliber can do with the Art Scope.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. That's, as I was saying when I was talking to Corbett, as soon as I can get it installed on a rifle and get out to the range, I'm really looking forward to starting to work with it and starting to learn it. It's got a few things that are a little different than the M1000 that I've been working with, and just trying to learn that new system or learn those extra features and become proficient with them is something that I'm very much looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the framing aspect was it was kind of I don't know if I didn't really believe it at first, but then once I got behind it, started playing around with the scope, man, it works very well, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, I call that the wow, it works factor.
And a couple of things I like about the M1000 Pro right off the bat is, first off, it's zeroed at 200 yards, not 250 yards, or 250 meters rather. And I like that fact that this one now is the 200 yard zero, and then everything adjusts from there. So that's one thing before I even put it on that I'm happy about. Not that the 250 yards is something that can't be handled or mastered or anything like that, but it's just, again, the way my brain works, it's a little easier when it's calibrated that way.
And that is a perfect example of when we're talking about being agile and listening to the customer. That's the feedback we got, was like, so many people here The military and the world uses meters. Where, we have 100 yards. We know what 100 yards is because everybody watches football pretty much. So that's how we think. That's what we used in high school. That's what what we grew up on. So our customers came back, said, we really wish that you would use yards instead of meters. So ta-da, here's the M1000 Pro, and we have it in yards just for that reason.
And that's great. And when I zeroed the M1000, that was one of the things that, I don't know if you saw that video that I made, but I showed adjusting the cam and the initial zeroing process. And I don't think I mentioned it in the video, but it's something I was definitely thinking of at the time, that if I was at 200 yards, it would just be a little more familiar for me than going with the meters. I actually measured it in yards. I converted it to yards, and it was something like 275 yards or something like that was 250 meters. So that's where I conducted the zeroing.
So I have a question for you. In your process for getting set up, did you come across the fine-tune aspect of if you shoot high, go high, if you shoot low, go low? Did you come across that at all?
I didn't come across it there. When I got to bang steel and I was doing some of the extended range shooting, I did notice that a little bit, and I cheated. I didn't actually change the adjustment. I just turned the cam a little bit more one way or the other in order to fine-tune it.
Sure. So I think that's a takeaway for us is we want, the beauty of the camming system. So originally, if you look at the old arts and even the M600, we had teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever you made an adjustment, you could only make the adjustment so fine because you had the teeth. And so whatever the gap of the teeth was were the increments of the adjustment. With the M1000 and all the, forward up to the M1000 Pro, you'll notice that it's a flat, so it's a pressure plate. And my dad had wanted to make the adjustments tighter so you could, more fine. And so Chris, a takeaway for us might be we've got to figure out how to make sure that the end user knows that they can fine tune the cam. So Chris, do you have anything else that you'd like to add for today's call?
Let's see. Well, first and foremost, thank you, Howard, for taking the time to join us. And I really appreciate your videos and you taking the time to talk with us and review the M1000. And I just want to circle back to that technique. Actually, I think that what Howard was doing in manual mode is perfectly acceptable. Sometimes you don't have the tools on range to actually loosen up the cam and change the setting. I do that sometimes too. So if I'm shooting low, I might dial the cam manually down a couple tick marks, or if I'm shooting high, I might dial it up a little bit more. But yeah,
I think I agree with you. I think we've all done that. So that's the cheat technique. But you have that option, and even then, it's easier than having to reach up and count and click two down, right? And then you're trying to remember that it's all contained right there, and it's not fine motor. You're on it. You're turning. You're gripping that dial and you're turning it versus trying to count your clicks. And then even then, if you don't have a lock, you don't have to worry about putting your cap back on and accidentally rotating your dial and knocking it off. So there's just so many advantages to having that art camming system.
Well, and that was really exactly what I was doing. If I was hitting a little too high, I just dialed the range back a little bit. So that brought my trajectory down a little bit. Or if I was hitting a little bit low, I brought the range up a little bit to raise it. So it was very intuitive, I thought.
So that's just shooting, but instead of having to do the math and count the clicks and figure all that out, it's a matter of this versus
right.
And and the other beauty of this is, I don't know if you saw the new video that we posted in the rain with Scott, but Scott being a rookie shooter, and then this monsoon hit him at the range. The laser rangefinder they had would not bounce off the targets at the longer ranges. So it was worthless at that point. But with the camming system, framing the 18 inches, business got taken care of. So, another aspect or dynamic to the art system. So outstanding to meet you, face to face finally. And we appreciate you making time out of your Friday, and, stay safe out there, and thank you for your service, both in the Marine Corps as well as, your continued service to the nation as well as your community.
Well, again, thank you both for having me. I really did enjoy it. Thank you for your company and the way you guys run it. I really appreciate that. And I really did appreciate the way I was treated when I originally got a hold of you folks, and I was talking about that old M600 and some of those issues, because, you know, sometimes you'll get a hold of a company and I have, for whatever reason here the last few years, I've had various issues with firearms and one piece of equipment or another. And, you know, sometimes you'll get a hold of companies that are very accommodating and they really want to help you out and they value you as a customer. And other times, not so much. You guys, the way you treated me, the way you helped me out, you know, everything that's happened since then really puts you pretty much at the top of the list. I have really appreciated the way you guys run your company. I like the products that you have. Quick story before you go. I mentioned that I shoot in the vintage sniper rifle competitions up at Camp Perry. 2014, I was shooting my 03A4 in that vintage sniper rifle competition. And with your scope on top of it, that rifle shot a 199 9X out of a possible 200 points from 300 and 600 yards. So wow. Outstanding performance on the part of your optic and that rifle. That was fantastic. Now, I've never been able to do it again, but on that day, I was able to do it. There were only 2 guys that shot a higher score than me that day, and they had to shoot a perfect score to do it.
Wow,
that is outstanding. That is outstanding. Yeah. Yeah. So, and you never can discount the person behind the trigger. So well done. And I think that's a wrap. So guys, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you both for having me. I very much enjoyed it.
Thank you, Howard.
Yeah. We'll be in touch, Howard. Take care.